Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the gay Marxist politics of San Francisco in the 1960s. Now, during that time and subsequent to that, if you like, a structural model for marginalized groups, victim politics, gay politics, gay lesbian politics, Marxist, Marxist politics. It doesn't really sort of matter how you want to lump all this together or separate it into subsets, but the model for this in practical terms was being created around this time. And it's something that I think is worthy of study insofar as it unleashed a set of forces and attitudes and views, most of which are terribly destructive to the Western civis. And I'll go over this during the course of this essay. So now you probably remember, or those who sort of are old enough, or even those who may have studied at the time, would remember the Summer of Love in 1960s. This was in sort of, 67, around that time, and it was focused in San Francisco, particularly around the wider Haight-Ashbury. This is two streets, Haight Street, Ashbury Street, the Haight-Ashbury district, as it was called, and a lot of young kids, college-age kids, came to San Francisco, hoping and expecting to find a nirvana of socialist utopia and this sort of thing. There was going to be drugs, there was hippies, there was dancing, there was music, there was the carefree existence, and it's got a nice climate, San Francisco, a very pretty city, by the way, for those who haven't been there. That San Francisco Bay Area, that Golden Gate Bridge and that whole thing, the trolley cars and the like. It's very picturesque in the way it's the hills and the buildings and so on. Now, I first went to San Francisco as a young man in, 84, 85, somewhere around there. And the gay scene was something that really surprised me. It was the days of the chaps with the ass cheeks hanging out, and the gay guys walking around with their hands on each other's ass and each other's back pockets. And so, and I'd never saw, I didn't particularly care, by the way, but I'd never seen that before. I thought it was an odd thing to do in public, but hey, no. Now, but that whole permissive period, if you will, ushered in certain attitudes that took hold in other ways. Now, there was a sizable gay population in San Francisco that had come in at around that time, on the tail end and during this Summer of Love sort of thing. So there were an overrepresentation of gay people. I don't know about the lesbian population necessarily, but certainly the gay population. Many of those were Marxist activists. Some sort of given the way they were behaving, what they were doing, they seemed like professional sort of activists and agitators. Also, many were Jewish, so a lot of Jewish homosexuals there, and they tend to gravitate towards this sort of thing. There were similar things going on in New York at the time, by the way. Allen Ginsberg and that crowd he was running with. So, but the type of permissiveness in San Francisco of being a pretty laid-back sort of place allowed these elements to infiltrate, and particularly in government jobs, teaching jobs, that sort of thing. There was just a higher level of tolerance of gay people, and this concerned some and was viewed as being some great progressive leap forward by others. Now, gay, in some cases openly gay, people were trying to stand for election to say the city government or the state government or into senior positions, like school board and senior positions in the public service, that sort of thing. They did okay, I guess, in the public service, and there was sort of, I guess, a threshold where a number of activist gay people were getting into things like school boards, and they were then making sure that other gay people were getting hired. And it was a number of citizens were concerned that it was going to be like a gay takeover of the education system, or parts of it at least, in some schools. So there was a referendum was held, which would have allowed the school board, school districts, that sort of thing, to fire gay teachers who were pushing gay politics, gay propaganda in the classroom. As it was discovered, quite a few of them were, and we see that today. The LGBTQ pushing in the schools is beyond belief. But at that stage, it was viewed as not only acceptable but desirable, if not necessary, to recondition the population, to reprogram them, to brainwash them, to see gay Marxist politics as being the natural order rather than an aberration. Anyway, the resolution passed, the referendum passed, so this was viewed as being a dagger to the heart of the gay people, who at that stage, of course, were overrepresented in that area. I mean, all they had to do was just not push gay politics in the classroom, and it would have been okay. But anyway, now one of the gay activists around, who was I think he was in his late 30s or something at that time, mid-30s, late 30s. I think he'd served in the Navy in some capacity for a while, was this Jewish homosexual Harvey Milk. And he as far as I can tell, he'd accomplished absolutely nothing in his life, but he wanted to take on this cause of gay rights and gays being oppressed and this sort of stuff. And he obviously was reading a lot of Marx and a lot of, I wouldn't be surprised if Cold War Soviet agitators had got to him, and they would have been around San Francisco like flies on shit as soon as they would have seen the dynamic social upheaval possibilities that would have existed around there. So Harvey Milk was, he'd stood for, as indeed had other gay guys, stood for election in San Francisco for the local city government, or the city board of supervisors, I think they call it there. And none of the gay guys were getting elected to anything, including Harvey Milk. So because there were so many gay people and so, again, Marxist activist agitators in the city government generally, more at the administrative level than the political level, they somehow managed to swing it that a gerrymandered district. So they identified the gay areas of San Francisco, the gay suburbs or blocks and so on, the gay areas, and said, if we can gerrymander that into just one electoral district, then we can elect the gay guy to the local city council. Somehow, and I don't know how, I mean, it's got to be because the amount of people in the public service and in the administrative functions in and around the body politic of the city were gay and gay activists and so on. They managed to swing it. So, but this is okay. We'll just gerrymander a district, and it's equity, it's equality, it's beautiful, it's progress, it's social progress. We'll just totally fuck up the political system to suit this minority group, and that's social progress. Now, you may, even if you want to call it social progress, which very few would, or the activists would, but it's a subversion of the political process. And this and this is during the Great Society stuff of Lyndon Johnson and all that type of thing. So there's lots of vibes around that would, indirectly support this. But the idea that you just redraw the city electoral boundaries to suit a minority group that's infiltrated and controlled by Marxist agitators, and say that that's somehow equality or equity. Fuck. And it shows the corruption of that mindset, again, which we see today, but writ large across the whole Western world. Now, so they create this corrupt gerrymander bullshit district, which again is a subversion of the political process, subverting the will of the people. None of these gay guys could have got or would have got elected, the openly gay guys, and they were pushing gay politics. Now, if the guy's gay, then who cares? And if he's pushing policies, this is for the city of San Francisco. If he's pushing and announcing policies that make more efficient city government, that provide better quality education, higher quality of teachers, that provide better maintenance of the roads, and that provide more more efficient sanitation services, and so on and so forth. If the guy is pushing policies that are to the common good, the common weal, everybody's meant to benefit. It's for the benefit of the citizens of San Francisco, not for the gay community or not for the radical gay community. But the guy's he's getting up pushing radical gay policies. He's not getting elected. Well, it must be because of the fascist Nazi Christians. No, it's because you're not trying to govern or put policies that are for the universal benefit. You're just trying to appeal to a small, angry activist subsection. That's why you're not getting elected. But they didn't see it that way. And if you look at the writings of the period, they present that straight Christian people are the enemy. They are the enemy numero uno on steroids. It's them. They're the ones. And that's why we're not getting all the benefits that we want. That's why we're not getting the power we want. And these are quite radical things. And the scathing hatred they have for straight white Christians is just off the charts. There's a lot of Hispanic gays as well in that mix. And in San Francisco at the time. So they want this gerrymandered district to be able to elect a gay guy. Now, again, I don't know how that happened, but it's a subversion. It's not a benefit to anybody. It is a subversion. Let's give the gays something. Let's just give them a district. Hey, what's wrong with that? No, okay, all right then. But it's the subversion of the political process at the issue here. Not that you're throwing some giveaway thing to the gay activists. Nonetheless, so it's into this gay district that Harvey Milk gets elected. Now it's treated as somehow some huge victory, and we've won, and we're showing those evil straight white Christians and so on. And this then sort of kicked off a process and kicked off attitudes, or made them permissible, if you like, to do this gerrymandering. So if we gerrymander for the gay guys, we have to gerrymander for the lesbians, we have to gerrymander for the blacks, we have to gerrymander for the Hispanics, we have to gerrymander for the Jews or the this or the that. So any minority group that could even have an indirect claim to some sort of victim status, whether it's current or something that even happened hundreds of years ago, they go, well, we want gerrymandered districts. And so this became, if you like, the new template right across the United States. And if we look at the Trump administration's trying to unwind the gerrymandered black districts in over the United States, now that may cost the black people 20 plus seats in the federal Congress, the House of Representatives of the United States, or more than that, depending on how you do the numbers. But that's restoring the political process to how it's meant to be. Anybody that stands for office has to represent all the people in their electorate, not just the black people, not just the gays, not just the lesbians, not just the whatever. So, and that's the whole process of democratic representation, people voting for their government. But once a black-only district or a gay-only district, then these people are freed from the responsibility of governing for the common good. They can just push radical, one-eyed bullshit politics and policies, always claiming victimhood, always screaming for more handouts and gimmies. And that, of course, subverts, very effectively, by the way, subverts the entire political process, decision-making, laws that are passed and not passed, and so on and so forth. And this sort of began, I would argue, the rot in San Francisco. It began there, I would say, and was then. Now, the talk about creating black-only electoral districts was already going on elsewhere in the US, so that in itself wasn't absolutely unique. But the gerrymandering idea that it's okay to gerrymander, it's okay to subvert the political process in order to create some imagined bullshit utopia. Now, the gay people, they get the activists, and they're the ones doing most of the writing and most of the stuff, sort of the radical pamphleteers and these sorts of things. They didn't see it, that they couldn't. That their perception was that the only reason they weren't getting elected was because of straight white Christians. If the straight white Christians, were killed off or didn't have a vote or were evicted or somehow their power to vote or whatever was taken away, then some magical equity would exist. And they weren't seeking the gay activists, by the way, they weren't seeking equality, as it turned out. They were seeking, if we destroy our enemy, straight white Christians, then what happens is by default an equality. So it was a very destructive thing, similar to the Holodomor in the Soviet Union or the eradication of anyone with wrongthink by Stalin and his goons in the Soviet Union, this sort of thing. And so the eviction of the Jews by the Nazi government in Germany, the Jews were using the very same tactics they denounced, decried, and screamed. We're victims because of what Hitler did, and we're going to do exactly what Hitler did. I mean, that's equality. I mean, that's how you solve the problems of history. I mean, fuck. So now, Harvey Milk was, in my view, not someone that should be treated reverence, although he's become a gay heroic icon. I don't know why. His intimate relations with underage men or boys, is that something to be revered? That he gained political office through a gerrymandered district, was that it? He also, and others around, it wasn't just Harvey Milk, advocated policies where if there were any straight white owners of shops, street front shops or businesses in what they considered their district, their country, their place, then those people should be driven out, and shoppers should be openly encouraged to shop elsewhere and only patronise or buy stuff in gay-owned businesses. They were able to raise money. I'm not sure how. This seems a little bit murky, but somehow they were able to get their hands on money to buy up various businesses. So they'd run the straight white male business into the ground, and then they'd somehow have the money to go and buy that business and make sure that only gay. So there were effectively street laws that only gay people were allowed to own businesses in that district, which seems insane. Flagrant breaking of commercial and trading type laws and the like, but they're able to get away with it. And given the amount of things they're able to get away with there, such as I would argue law breaking in that sense, then it kind of spread. They're emboldened to sort of continue and do worse. So now they ran out. They got rid of competent, experienced storekeepers and business people in the gay district, and they weren't always replaced with people that had similar capability or who valued it. Someone who's worked hard to make their business successful will likely be much better at running that business than some flunky. So it's almost like a Zimbabwe thing where you just seize very Marxist and communist. You just seize the businesses from the most productive people, and then you hand it off to your best buddies, most of whom are just freeloading passengers. Not every gay guy who gets gifted a business like that is going to be successful at running that business. So in the end, it was completely counterproductive. And as the businesses sort of went backwards in the area and things like that, because competent people have been replaced with incompetent freeloaders and passengers, then the answer was to demand even more handouts from the city, from the taxpayer. And that's okay, because the main source of tax is those straight white male Christians, and it's quite acceptable that we steal from them because they're the enemy, and so on and so forth. Now, again, this framework, this template, you can see it just as stark and just as vivid today as it was in the 1960s. So the framework of gerrymandering, victimhood, entitlement, and so on, that the whole narrative and the activist structure of the language and so on is pretty much universal. So, like illegal aliens, blacks, Hispanics, it doesn't matter. I've been in America 25 years. I can't speak a word of English. well, you should go there. No, 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 you're now a victim. And so this again, this framework's been imposed not only on the United States, but the whole Western world. It didn't begin there in San Francisco, but the framework of we can gerrymander, we can subvert the political process, we can subvert the legal process, we can subvert the merit process, we can subvert anything and everything in order to get what we want. And the cost of it, the knock-on cost of it, the collateral damage cost of it, that can be shared by everybody. But the benefit must be ours and ours alone, say the activists. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.